because he's grumpy old Harrison Ford and he does whatever he wants. He doesn't care. Okay, we saw the new Expendables, and you are too. We're big fans of the Expendables franchise. I mean, I am a Stallone Schwarzenegger completist. There's not a whole lot that I don't like by those guys. I mean, earlier this year I didn't like Sabotage, but I mean, it's pretty hard to not make me happy with those guys. When it comes to their movies, I'm not going to be analyzing it from the standpoint that I would a lot of other films. They kind of get a break because they have a soft spot for me. As a kid who grew up watching a lot of action films with those guys.
And I think that's what this genre is trying to do.
That's exactly what this franchise does. These are not quality films. They're not trying to be, though. They really are just fan service. They're just fan service. That's really what it is. So I liked the first one a lot. But I didn't think the first one even quite lived up to the potential that it was hyping itself up to be. I loved the second one. The second one did everything that I wanted the first one to do, and more. The second one was great. It's honestly probably one of my favorite action films of all time. And there's a lot of trilogies that people talk about where it goes something like this. The first one's good, the second one's better, third one not quite as good. And that's present in a lot of trilogies. A lot of people will say that about the Dark Knight trilogy. A lot of people will say that about the original Star Wars trilogy. A lot of people say that about, I don't know. It's talked about a lot.
Chronicles of Narnia.
There you go, Chronicles of Narnia. It's very common in trilogies that happens. Unfortunately, I do think this is one of those cases, but I will say this. I thought it was still a fun movie. It's definitely the weakest of the three, for multiple reasons, which we'll all talk about. What really hurt it for me was just the first half of the movie. I thought the first half, it didn't suck, but the first half was very underwhelming for me. And there were a lot of issues I had. But it made up for it in the second half. And by the second half, by the end of the movie, I was having fun again, and I said, you know what? It's still overall a fun movie, a fun action film. And here's the thing, too. Despite being a PG-13, which we'll talk about, despite being a PG-13, and despite being the weakest of the three, it still feels like an Expendables film, I think. It still fits with the other two movies, I think. It's the most inferior, no doubt. But it's not, this is not, to me at least, this is not a sequel that fans of the franchise should at least, kind of banish, I don't think this is...
I don't feel like the PG-13 rating is what caused the problems
It's not.
they have.
It's not. I mean, we'll talk about... Because there are some issues that it gave. But for the most part, the PG-13 is not the biggest problem this movie has. Even if this stuck with the R rating, most of the problems would still be present, which, again, we'll get to. But I just want to say, I don't think it is, nor should it be. This is not that kind of sequel where fans are going to be like, oh, we don't talk about that movie. We don't talk about that. We pretend like it doesn't even exist. This isn't RoboCop 3. This isn't The Phantom Menace. This isn't, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. This is, it's not quite as good as the first two. This is Back to the Future 3. It's it's not as good as the other two. It's still a good movie, though. Not good movie. It's still a fun movie, though. It's a bad movie. But you know what? The other two aren't exactly quality films either. But it's a fun movie.
Let's just say this isn't going to be winning any Oscars. But
no, none of them are. But, so, I guess let's go ahead and talk about the PG-13 real quick. My heart was broken when Stallone announced it was going to be PG-13. I think a lot of people were. If you shoot your movie like to be a PG-13, that's one thing. Because when you're making the film that it's going to be PG-13, so you can film the action scenes the way they should be, and yada, yada, yada. But when you shoot your film to be an R and then you cut it down to a PG-13, a trend that really needs to stop because it's been happening a lot lately, that's the problem. Because then in the editing room,
noticeable.
they chop it up and it is so distracting on the screen. Now, I will say this to the movie. It's not as bad as it could have been, like, as far as that goes. Most of the movie, actually, I don't think the PG-13 was that bad. I mean, yeah, there's the, only say the F-bomb once, which, of course, they give that to Harrison Ford.
Well, of course.
But besides that, I mean, there's, like, no blood at all, which, one of the things I do love about the first two is how gory they are. I do kind of wish they kept that in there. I'm sure this will get an unrated release when it comes out, and I am curious to see what the R-rated cut will look like when it comes out on Blu-ray and DVD. I'm sure, because, again, for the most part, the action scenes are still good, for the most part, but there were moments, especially in the final, 20 minutes when it's all pure action, there were a lot of moments where someone would die, and I would think to myself, like, that was supposed to be way more brutal. Like, there was a lot of CGI blood that was edited out. Like, there was a lot of body parts blowing up that was edited out.
Where Schwarzenegger is on the roof.
And he has his automatic shotgun.
He has a striker shotgun. And he's just blowing people away. And there's this one point where this dude walks around the corner, literally like 3 feet away from him, and Stallone blows him away. And you just kind of see pellets hit his chest, and then he falls down.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, if that was R, he would have been ripped to shreds.
Exactly. The first kill in the first Expendables film they're invading a cargo ship that got taken over by pirates. And the very first kill is Dolph Lundgren with a grenade launcher putting a shotgun-like round into it, shooting a guy, and the guy's top torso literally just flies off his body. That's the first kill in the first Expendables. And in the second Expendables, there's that, one more, and the whole crew
you would have never seen that happen.
Annihilates this one guy. And you don't see anything like that in the third. And I think that is part of the appeal, I don't know if I should say appeal, but kind of the charm, so to speak, is that they're hard R action films,
Did you also notice, like, whenever, like, especially in the last 20 minutes, whenever there was a knife kill, it was always like there was the one where Stallone went around the corner and it's like the guy is in between the camera and Stallone. It's like
it's always off. All the knife kills are off camera, and it is distracting. It didn't ruin the film though. There's still good action in here, but it is just begging to be an R cut though, and I am gonna see what the R cut is. You know what I might do? I might re-review this when the unrated cut comes out, and just compare the two, because I bet it's so much better. But I want to go into that in general. One of my biggest problems with this movie, and the PG-13 is just a little bit of this, the editing is not very good in general, just generally speaking. There's some really bad transitions, like really poorly done transitions between scenes, between action scenes, between dialogue. When you watch like people having conversations in dialogue scenes, it's common when you're watching it on television movies where like they're talking and then they cut to another shot and then like one of those guys, like maybe their hands are up and then when they cut to another shot, his hands are suddenly down, Little things like that are common to see every once in a while. Maybe this is just me nitpicking, I saw a ton in the dialogue scenes. In other words, just if you don't understand what I'm saying, there's just some really rough editing.
I don't notice that stuff very much, but I did notice one.
I saw a lot of the Wesley Snipes scene when he's in the plane.
Yes, there was one during the Wesley Snipes scene where
his hands were on the seats.
His arms were like this, and then it cuts to him going like this, and then it cuts away, and his arms are back here.
And you may think, okay, you guys are really nitpicking. It's all over the movie, though. Like, I mean it. Like, this is very amateur editing. And you would expect more of that. And also, there's some really... Okay, the CGI blood in the first two movies are very not good, and that's fine. So you might think, like, well, the other two movies don't have very good CGI. There's some really not good green screen shots either. like when Kelsey Grammer and Stone are in the car driving. That's actually a really funny scene, but like you can just tell it's a green screen. You can see the backdrop, like, and again, I know I'm kind of nitpicking here, but when that happens over and over again throughout the course of the movie, that does get distracting. Yeah. I can forgive it a few times because it is just a movie, and it's also a dumb movie. It's not trying to be an Oscar winner. It's not trying to break any new ground. It's just trying to be fun. But that can get annoying after a while. So that's one of my biggest problems. One, the editing. Here's the other only real issue I had with the movie. It's really, you really wouldn't think this would be it. It's just kind of a big part of the plot. So we'll go into the plot now. So, the Expendables breaks out, Wesley Snipes out of jail, and out of like this deep prison he was in.
Who was part of the original Expendables.
Wesley Snipes is part of the original Expendables, and when he was part of the team, he was the knife guy. You know, Jason Statham is like the current knife guy in the first two films, but he was like the older one. And I will say, I'm going to go off track real quick. One thing I did like about this movie, though, is they do kind of go into more depth about the Expendables as a team in their history. I kind of liked that. Like, there's a scene when they're in the ship, and you see all these dog tags hanging up, and that's representing all the members who have died over the years. Like, that was actually kind of cool. Because we really don't know much about the history. We only learn little bits of history throughout the first two films. So it's kind of cool to know more about that. And the lead villain in this one, Mel Gibson, he's like the co-founder of the Expendables with Stallone. So that was kind of cool. But anyways, they get him out of prison. That's the opening scene. So Wesley Snipes is now with the group. They do a mission. They try to like ambush this guy, but then they find out it's Mel Gibson. Stallone thought he killed him years ago. Things go wrong, the mission goes wrong, and in the process, Mel Gibson shoots and almost kills Terry Crews. So in Expendables 2, Jet Li is out for almost the entire film. In this one, Terry Crews is almost out for the entire film. Yeah. He's just in the hospital.
He was only in like the beginning.
Yeah. I'm sure it had to do with, I'm going to guess it might have been scheduling issues maybe. I'm going to guess that's why Jet Li wasn't. I think that was why Jet Li wasn't in the second one for very long. Like, he just didn't have time to do it. Which, to be fair, that's a lot of big names in one movie, you know? To work around all their schedules would be kind of tough. That's why Sin City works, because in Sin City it's all green screen, so they can just digitalize everyone in the scene together. But this is not so much the case. But, so, here's where my problem comes in. And this is where the plot really starts to kick in. So Terry Crews is wounded. Stallone's like, I'm going to find Mel Gibson. I'm going to kill him once and for all. But I guess because Terry Crews almost died, and because all the other Expendables over the years have died, he starts to feel like he's too attached to Statham and Randy Couture and Lundgren and Snipes that he feels that he can't afford to see them get killed like everyone else. So he basically tells them, like, you guys are done. Like, I'm sorry, I don't want you in the Expendables anymore. So he fires all of them from the Expendables, and then he goes out to hire a new group that he's never worked with, doesn't know personally at all, knows nothing about them, and so that they can kill Mel Gibson. I have problems with this. One, you are putting all these people, you're firing all these close friends because you don't want to see them get killed. Okay, so now you're going to hire all these young people so they can get killed.
So if they do get killed, he doesn't
feel bad, but he's still putting young lives, at least the other guys are old. Like, these are young people, and he's putting them in danger, and he thinks they're going to die anyways.
It's like you said when we were sitting in the theater, though. It's just the story's way of introducing new people.
It's their way of getting new people, and it's also their way of giving Stallone character Barney kind of an arc of development, but it doesn't work very well. It does not work, and I have problems with it because that's a big part of the plot. And it basically just makes Barney, Stallone's character, it just makes him look like a jerk and a double standard jerk at that.
I don't know.
And again, it doesn't make much sense. Like, it's just... It doesn't make much sense. And I had a big problem with that. So, Kelsey Grammer comes in being awesome, because Kelsey Grammer is awesome in everything, even Transformers. And he's basically like, okay, I'm going to recruit you some new guys. So we get 4 new people, and only 2 of them stand out. The other 2 are just kind of there. They got Ronda Rousey in there, and okay, here's the thing. I love Ronda Rousey. I have a lot of respect for her, and when I heard that she was going to be in this, I thought that was awesome. Overall, she's well used. I really hate how they introduce her.
Yeah, stupid.
It's one of my, and this is just one of my biggest pet peeves with cinema in general and how they portray women in action films. Excuse me. I hate the cliche of introducing a woman in an action film and they're like, oh, she's a girl and she's hot, but then she kicks a guy's butt, and then they're like, oh, she's a strong, independent woman. Who's the girl now? They do that with Ronda Rousey, and I hate that.
Well, I love how she's supposed to be the bouncer, but she's wearing high
and
heels
she's
and
wearing
a dress.
but she's dressed like
the
a
bouncer
hostess.
would not dress like that.
And she's wearing glasses to be deceptive. And I'm gonna say, I actually think she gives a solid performance. I think she could do movies. I'm totally on board for Ronda Rousey doing movies. And overall, she's good in this. I just hated how, and this is more of Stallone's, this is not her fault, this is just Stallone's fault for writing her like that. She was not introduced the way I would have wanted her to. Although the Fast and Furious movies are definitely more guilty of doing that than Expendables. At least What's-Her-Face from Expendables 2 wasn't written like that, the Asian woman.
Mm.
She was taken, for the most part, seriously. I mean, Ronda Rousey's great. I just hated how she was introduced. And then you have these other 3 guys who I don't know. I think one of those guys was I think he played Hercules in The Legend of Hercules, which, that movie really sucked. But he was pretty good.
I feel like I knew him from other stuff, too.
And then you had an MMA guy, and I mean, the guy with a mohawk, I think he's an MMA guy, I'm pretty sure. He looked like it. He was fine, but, he didn't do that much. Does he have a big moment in the movie? Does he have a moment where he, goes hand-to-hand with someone? I don't think you see it.
Well, you see him shoot people and stuff.
You see him shoot a few people, but, I don't...
Well, he's the tech guy, remember?
No, not the tech guy. I'm talking about the guy with the mohawk, the bigger guy, the well-built guy.
Oh, the guy that they got at the army base?
Yeah.
Oh.
Does he have a real moment? I don't know if he does.
Think so.
I think he might be, because I don't know who that guy is, but I think he might be an MMA guy, which if you're gonna... I mean, Ronda Rousey had a few hand-to-hand moments. Jason Statham, of course, did. You think if you were going to get that guy for your movie, you would want him to kind of show off his skills.
There's so much.
And then you have
so much.
And then you have the skinnier guy who's the tech guy, and he literally sits out for the climax.
Yeah.
He literally spends...
I don't understand why he was climbing.
He spent the whole climax climbing an elevator shaft that was on fire. Okay. So
Someone sent him in there for some reason. I missed the reason why.
So they get these 4 guys, and then the movie Then here's another cliche. This cliche worked for a while in storytelling, particularly in action films, but now I'm getting tired of it, and it needs to stop because it's becoming predictable. It's that plot element that we've seen in The Dark Knight, Mission Impossible 3, Skyfall, and The Avengers, and I'm sure there's plenty more, where they capture the bad guy pretty early on in the film. I mean, not in the Dark Knight's case, but still. Pretty early on in the film, they have a moment talking with them, and then the bad guy escapes. And then the bad guy wreaks vengeance. That worked for a while, but I'm starting to see it a lot in movies now.
And I also loved how once Mel Gibson's in the truck or whatever, and they're taking him to the airplane or whatever, and it's like he scuffles with him or whatever, and he hits the tracker on his wristwatch, which they
had a GPS on his watch,
which they didn't take off. But anyways, okay, so they hit the GPS tracker, and almost immediately his henchmen are there in a helicopter, and it's just like,
yeah,
that was like instantaneous. Where did they come from?
So they capture Mel Gibson, but then Mel Gibson escapes very quickly
after he has like a
one-on-one with Stallone.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about Mel Gibson in a moment. Then Stallone is the only one to escape from this. And so then the 4 newbies get captured by Mel Gibson. And you see it in the trailer. Mel Gibson sends him this video, and he's all crazy eyes. And he's like, "You want him? You want him, Barney? Come and get him." So
I felt like, when I was watching that video, I felt like I was watching one of the Joker videos from
The Dark Knight, the snuff film, yeah.
Like
the snuff film, yeah, absolutely. And so Stallone is about to go alone to stop them. And then Antonio Banderas we'll get to Antonio in a minute too. Antonio
he's my favorite character
talks
in the entire movie.
I know. We'll get to him in a moment. Antonio Banderas steals this movie.
Oh, he does.
Antonio convinces, he comes out of nowhere, by the way, if you're wondering where he is in this movie. He literally just comes out of nowhere.
Well, they saw him
earlier, yes. But still. And he basically convinces Stallone to let him join him. So then the two are about to take off, but then, the older team comes back. And so Statham, Couture, and Lundgren and Wesley Snipes, they basically are like, you know what? I don't care what you say. We're coming with you because we love you, and we're the Expendables. So Stallone finally is just like, okay. So
basically just throwing out everything that happened in the first half.
Exactly. That's why the first half does not work. It totally does not work.
Because in the end, he's just like, oh, I guess I changed
He's like, I guess I was being stubborn. Okay. And so the old team plus Banderas plus Snipes, although Snipes was part of the older team, but still, they go out, and in the process, Harrison Ford, whose character is literally replacing Bruce Willis's character.
That's what he was.
Yeah.
He's the new CIA agent.
Although that was...
They even make a comment about that.
Yeah, they're like, because Bruce Willis's name is Church.
He's out of the picture.
Yeah, he's like, he's out of the picture. I'm Harrison Ford. So, I'm only doing this to get more money. So, because he needs it, right? So, Harrison Ford, Schwarzenegger, and then finally Jet Li, he comes back in the last 30 minutes. It's nice to see you again, finally. They come in too, so they come in, they rescue the team, and the new guys don't get along with the old Expendables. And then Stallone gives a very inspirational speech.
Okay.
About how...
All while Mel Gibson is watching.
Yeah, Mel Gibson is watching this on a monitor, and he's literally just snarking at them like, okay. Which was really funny. And Stallone is giving this speech about how, we all may come from different places, but you know what? We can get through this if we work together.
And I also love the stereotypical way to quiet them all down, because they first they're all arguing, and then Stallone's like, okay, enough,
just shoots the
and then immediately everyone's like, ooh.
What's really funny is that they explain at that point that building is wired with explosives. What if he accidentally shot one of them?
He doesn't care.
So, anyways,
and the other cliche too of this building is wired with explosives, and they're gonna go off in 45 seconds. I can stop them, and it's like, oh, come on, man.
I'm glad.
And then it stops in 3 seconds.
Yeah. I'm glad at least that guy did something, because since he sat out for the entire climax, at least he saved everybody with his tech skills. So anyways, they all, join forces at the very end to stop Mel Gibson. That's your movie. So, yeah, that's the thing, is that the first half I had a lot of issues with, and it feels really underwhelming in the first half. It pays off, though. The second half is worth it, because the second half when
they literally destroy an entire army of this small country.
I mean, they did that in the first one too, but yeah, they do. They take on an entire army and
with tanks and helicopters, like the enemies have all
and
this stuff.
you know, it's with the original Expendables team plus Wesley Snipes plus Schwarzenegger plus Harrison Ford plus Antonio Banderas and then plus Ronda Rousey and the other three guys. It was really cool to see this big team take them all on. And the last 30, 20 minutes, it is pure, like the other two, pure action. It's just them taking on a whole army, and it's a lot of fun. There's some really cool kills. There's some really good moments. There's some well-shot scenes. There's very well-placed humor. All in all, a good time. Again, just the editing, it's not very well edited, and just the first half really drags.
I understand that it's an homage to 80s films and stuff like that, and it's an action film and stuff like that, but the stormtrooper effect on the enemies in these movies, I mean, these guys are supposed to be a professional army and stuff like that, but they can't even hit something sitting right in front of them.
At least the movie points that out, though. Because there's a great scene, because while this is happening again, at the climax, Mel Gibson is watching all of it on a monitor, and as they start to just wipe out this army, he starts to get angry, and then he tells, the head guy of the army who's next to him, he's like, really? You can't take down 10 people? You can't even injure them?
but, I mean, it's like I understand why they don't have them be really good. It's so they don't kill our main characters.
Yeah.
But can't they make it at least make it look like at least it's hard?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, it's just there's a part when Ronda Rousey or whatever her name is on the ground, and there's these two dudes standing in front of her, just blowing their machine guns, and it's just hitting all around her, and she's just like, "Oh, I'm dodging it," and it's just like, "Oh my god!"
And that's when Antonio Banderas comes into save her. We'll get to Antonio in a second. I want to talk about Mel Gibson first. So, I've always thought that Stallone, because he is the brains of this series. He only directed the first one, but he's written all three of them. He's produced all. This is his project. Stallone always did a really good job picking the villains for these movies. In the first Expendables, it was Eric Roberts. Eric Roberts is a really good choice. In the second Expendables, it was Jean-Claude Van Damme, a personal favorite of mine in the action genre. And Van Damme was dark and, he's by far the actor taking that movie the most seriously. Who more fitting than the villain? And yeah, and so he was great. Mel Gibson is by far, and I love Van Damme and Eric Roberts, but Mel Gibson, his character and his performance is by far my favorite villain in the whole trilogy. Mel Gibson
he was a great villain.
Is having the time of his life in this movie. He is camping this up so much. He is wide-eyed. He's giving crazy smiles. He's yelling. He's shooting. He is having a blast. He is so much fun. We could do a whole separate video review just talking about Mel Gibson in this movie.
He's a great villain in this
movie. Unfortunately, there's not really any other villains, though.
Well, there was his henchman guy
who does nothing.
There's this dude who has this big scar on his face and it's really big and follows him around, but they really don't explain anything about him.
That's the only
and even
issue.
when he does come into the action,
Statham
just kicks his ass.
He kicks him. I mean, he kills him very quickly.
Yeah.
That was my only issue with the villains, is that while the lead villain might be the best out of all of them, there's no supporting villains. In the first Expendables, Stone Cold Steve Austin was the main. It was Eric Roberts' main henchman, and he was really fun. And Expendables 2, Scott Adkins was Van Damme's henchman, and he was really cool. And the fight that Adkins and Statham have next to the plane was really cool, or the helicopter, whatever. That was a really good action scene. You don't really get that in this one. It's really just Mel Gibson and a million henchmen and soldiers. So that was kind of a bummer. But besides that, Mel Gibson's awesome. And as far as Schwarzenegger goes, he's literally just there. I mean, he's dropping his lines. He's quoting his movies like he did in the second one. He says 2 different chopper puns, one of them being "get to the chopper." And he actually doesn't say I'll be back, does he? I'll give him that. He doesn't say that. He does quote Commando. He does, I lied. That was pretty funny. Jet Li could have done more. I don't think he did any hand-to-hand moments.
No, he was just in the helicopter the whole time.
Yeah, he was just shooting the whole time. I kind of wish Jet Li had at least one hand-to-hand scene. That would have been cool. Because Jet Li is an insanely good martial artist. I love Jet Li.
Couldn't understand a word he said.
Yeah, his English isn't very good. My favorite movies of his are his Chinese movies where I just read subtitles.
Yeah.
Check out Fist of Legend. One of my favorite martial arts films ever. Phenomenal movie. Will blow you away.
You know, and I think it's funny and of course it's Sylvester Stallone, which some of the time, you know, it's really easy to understand, but sometimes it's really not. And they actually make a joke about that when they're flying in the airplane and they're talking to Harrison Ford. And it's like, Harrison Ford is making fun of Statham because he can't understand Statham, and Statham's like, well, I can't understand this guy.
Yeah.
They're all just mumbling to each other.
And that's why I can say, at the end of the day, even though this movie was the weakest of the three, it still feels like an Expendables film, because one of the things I like about those movies is they all make fun of each other. They make fun of how old they are. They make fun of how...
They have comedic chemistry.
Absolutely. You know, in the first Expendables, Stallone makes fun of Schwarzenegger's.
Well, I mean, I know we're gonna get to it, but can we talk about Antonio?
We will. We will in a second. We'll get to it. You know, like in the first one, Stallone makes fun of Schwarzenegger's weight gain, and in the second one, they make fun of how old they are. Like, and they do that in this one too, and so it still keeps the comedic spirit alive. Okay, now we'll talk about Antonio Banderas.
Well, they're always getting more into, like, as these movies go on, more into like you know, how old they are versus the new. Like when he first hires the 4 new young people, and he's like, and they're like, well, what's your plan? And it's like, well, my plan is we're just gonna go in guns blazing like an old movie. And they're like, no, that's stupid. We're gonna use our newer. I
actually like that scene because he's like, it's a good plan. And then Ronda Rousey is like, yeah, if it's 1985, that's a good plan. I was like, that's actually a good line. I like that line. Okay, so Antonio Banderas.
He's having so much fun in this movie.
He and Mel Gibson are having a blast. Antonio Banderas, okay, actually, I don't know if you've ever seen this, but because I don't think you have, there's a pretty fun action movie from the 90s that Stallone and Banderas did called Assassins. And Stallone's the good guy. They're both assassins, but Stallone's the good guy. And Banderas is this psychotic villain. Very over the top. He's amazing in it. But I don't know if they've done any movies since then. So I just want to say right now, if you've seen Assassins, it's a pretty fun movie, I think. It's really cool seeing Banderas and Stallone specifically on screen together again after so many years. But I love Antonio Banderas in action movies. In Assassins, he's great. The Robert Rodriguez Mexico trilogy, the Mariachi trilogy, Once Upon a Time in Mexico is, in my opinion, a phenomenal action masterpiece. It is amazing, and Banderas is so awesome in it. And he's awesome in this. He's the comedic character. He is the comedic. He is the biggest comedic relief out of all of them. He's this wacky guy, and all he wants to do is fight. Like, he's a born fighter, but he
never shuts up.
He never shuts up. Like, never. And so everyone is annoyed by him in this before the battle, before they see him do anything, because they're all like, this guy will not shut up. And then he finally fights, and he's actually pretty good.
Like, really good.
Yeah, and he's really good at dodging bullets, apparently. You brought that up. And then there's a great scene. I was laughing so hard when he and Ronda Rousey are fighting together, and he starts pulling off his kind of
Banderas charm.
His Banderas Latino charm. He's like, he's holding her by the hand, and he's talking with a thick accent, and he's speaking very quickly, and she's literally just standing there like, get away from me. Like,
he's like, do you want to hold my gun?
He's like, do you want to hold my gun?
Like right after that scene, he picks up the gun, and like the people are running down the stairs, and he's just like,
he is shooting all these guys with I think it's an AK, with one hand. He's just
so great.
I freaking love Antonio Banderas.
No. Like right before the part happens where he's talking to her.
Mm-hmm.
He's running away from this helicopter that's trying to shoot him, and this helicopter is just blowing the
It's in the trailer,
away, and he's like running away from it, and then he jumps out on the side of the building, and he's like holding onto it, and it
strikes the brake,
and he's like ooh shit, and he just kind of falls down, and of course he like swings down and he breaks through, and of course saves her, and he's just like, it's so funny.
Yeah, he was. You know, one thing I will say about the Expendables movies is that they throw joke after joke at you, and although a lot of them are funny, many times they're not. In the first Expendables, there's a whole scene where Randy Couture goes into a rant about his like half ear or whatever, and it's supposed to be this really funny scene, and it's really not. It's kind of awkward. Banderas is actually really funny. Like, he's supposed to be funny, and he's really funny. In my opinion, at least, I thought he was really funny. Genuinely funny. He rocks this movie. Is there anybody casting-wise we missed?
Well, you said that there was the guy that was the buyer of Mel Gibson when they captured him.
Oh, yeah. Sanchez from License to Kill is in this. Special Agent Johnson from Die Hard. I can't remember the guy's name, but he's kind of known for playing tough guy roles. He was the main villain in License to Kill. He was one of the FBI jerks in Die Hard, and he's in there for just like a minute or two. But he's doing business with Mel Gibson. It was kind of cool to see him again, because I haven't seen him in an action movie in literally decades. I mean, I haven't, but I haven't seen the guy do a.
It's a nice little cameo.
Yeah, it's nice. It's a nice touch to see him again, because he's a cool guy. I really like him in License to Kill. He's a really good villain. So yeah, I mean, that's Expendables. I'm not going to give it a rating, because come on, it's Expendables 3.
I mean,
would I recommend
basically you just go to this movie for the action. Mm-hmm. That's what you're going to see.
I do recommend it, but only if you're a fan of the first two. If the first two movies did not win you over, and you can't get into them, there's no way you're gonna like this one, because it is the weakest of the three. So if you are a fan of the first two, I do recommend seeing it. But keep in mind, it is a little more underwhelming. It doesn't quite live up to the first two. Just keep that in mind. And the first half is a little weak, but I think it pays off in the end. All in all, I am glad we got to see it. I think it was a fun experience. So I think I will do. I think when it does come out, I will watch the unrated cut, and I might give that a retrospective review and see how it holds up, if it holds any better. If it's just as problematic, then there you go. So there is talk. I don't know how this is doing at the box office, but I don't think it's doing very well. I heard that overseas it's doing even worse because of the leak it got on the internet. Mm-hmm. And that's a shame, because Stallone's movies have not been doing well lately. Bolts of the Head didn't do very well. Escape Plan was out of theaters really quickly. It did not last long. We got it while we could. Ben told me that he tried seeing it in theaters, but it dropped after just a couple weeks.
Wow.
What else? I mean, I never saw Grudge Match, but I don't think that did very well either at the box office. So, I mean, the whole reason he made this a PG-13 was because he was hoping this would boost sales up, and I get that, but it's a business.
I mean, it's only the second night, or it's technically the first night.
Technically,
right?
It's the first night.
And it was pretty empty.
To be fair, we were at the
10-15 showing at South Point, but still.
The theater we went to is the second smallest theater in our city. We have, 4? Marcus Theaters has 4 theaters in Lincoln. Ours, the ones that we went to, is the second smallest. If we went to the Grand, I bet there would have been more people.
But still.
Probably not that many, though. I mean, we went to the South Point showing of Ninja Turtles,
it's technically
and that was packed.
It was technically the first night.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't think this is going to do well. And that's a shame, because even though it is the weakest of the three, I really wish that a Stallone film would do well.
Besides, I think we were the youngest people in there, too.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the people there were going pros because they're probably fans of the old times,
Coming from the guy that's wearing the Rocky shirt. Yeah. Well, it's a shame.
Also going back to the money thing, there was so much product placement. I know that
not as much as Transformers
in a lot of movies.
You know what? Out of all the movies we've been watching this year, it wasn't as bad as Transformers 4. It wasn't as bad as Ninja Turtles as far as product placement goes. Well, and this is just a much better movie in general than those two films.
But there's like the part with the Ford, with the brand new
Ford sign. Yeah,
there was a brand new car, and
there was a lot of product
slow
placement.
Panning shot across the thing. And
I don't think we did. Real quick, we didn't talk about Wesley Snipes very much. Wesley Snipes was actually pretty good.
I thought he was, but I just thought it was kind of like stupid how it's like Terry Crews gets shot, and it's like, oh, well, that's okay. We have another black guy.
Another black guy. Yeah.
Why couldn't it have been, Randy Couture or something like that that got shot? And it's like, okay, we can have two black guys.
I hear you. Honestly, yeah. Like, I respect Randy Couture. He's a very talented mixed martial artist, but I honestly like Terry Crews' character more than Randy Couture's character.
And Randy Couture's character didn't really do much.
He didn't. I don't think he had any hand-to-hand scenes in this one either. In the first Expendables...
Really, the only thing that I remember, a lot is when he was in the tank with Dolph Lundgren.
Yeah, that's true. He had that moment. But yeah, in the first... There's a lot of people that should have had hand-to-hand scenes in this movie and didn't. In the first Expendables, he had a one-on-one with Stone Cold. In the second one, I think he got a few punches in on henchmen. But in this one, yeah, he's really just shooting for most of it. But I thought Wesley Snipes was really good. It's really if you didn't know, he just got out of prison recently. He was in prison for a while for I think tax stuff related stuff.
Well, they made a joke about that.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, that's right. They did. Because they joke about Wesley Snipes being in jail.
They're in the see. I didn't know that.
Oh my god!
When they made this joke, this is what I thought.
Realized that.
Okay, because they're in the plane. Okay, and Wesley Snipes had just broke him out of prison, and Dolph Lundgren and who were sitting.
Jason Statham. No, Randy Couture.
Randy Couture were sitting across from him, and Randy Couture's like, "So what were you in prison for?" And they're expecting him to say killing a lot of people, and he's like, tax evasion.
Tax evasion.
But see, I thought he was making a reference to Al Capone.
Yeah. No,
I didn't know.
I didn't realize it too, but yeah, that is a truth because that's what happened. He went to jail for tax evasion, and so there are some really older Wesley Snipes movies that are really good.
And when they do introduce him, the character with the big name, he's pretty crazy. He's he has this huge beard. He's crazy eyed and
and he doesn't talk for a while either. Yeah, he's really good. He's kind of a center character for the first 20 minutes, and then he kind of just stays in the background for the rest of the film.
After that.
And I guess that's okay. But it was really cool to see him in an action movie again because it's been a while because he was one of the actors after the late 90s. He was one of the actors whose popularity started to die down, and then he just went to direct-to-DVD movies for a long time, and then he went to prison. So, it was really nice to see him again. It was a nice welcome. I actually hope he does some more big action films soon because I like him in action films.
Can we also talk about Harrison Ford a little bit?
Okay, let's talk about Harrison Ford. Yeah, he's in there for a little bit, but you
could totally tell that all his scenes were just shot with him just sitting in a chair, motionless.
Yes, he's still awesome though because he's Harrison Ford.
I know.
And his action scene is him in a helicopter, so he is technically blowing stuff up, but he's just sitting in a cockpit, smiling and grinning and
making snide comments about killing other people and stuff. Oh man,
he was pretty funny. He had some good lines in there. Yeah, like you said earlier, of course, they give the one F-bomb to him. Yeah, they have to, If you're going to give it to anybody in that cast, just one, give it to Harrison Ford. He's the oldest, he deserves it. Oh, man. So, yeah, it was cool seeing him in there, even if it was just for a little bit. So, that's Expendables 3. Yeah, I recommend it, but only towards fans of the series. And again, it is the weakest of the three. I still had fun.
It was a lot of fun.
I had a good time.
I mean, besides the problems we talked about, I liked it.
Mm-hmm. Now, I will say, they are talking about doing a fourth one. Pierce Brosnan and Hulk Hogan have confirmed this, which, what an odd, like, two people to follow up with that. Pierce Brosnan and then Hulk Hogan.
Is Hulk Hogan going to be the villain? Because that would be amazing.
I hope so. I hope Pierce Brosnan's the villain. That would be cool.
I don't think I've ever seen him as a villain.
He's the villain in Mrs. Doubtfire. Kind of. So, we should watch Mrs. Doubtfire in, loving memory of Robin Williams. So as far as they're making a fourth one goes, I'm on board for it. Make it an R again.
I really think it depends on how this one does.
Yeah,
I know you say that it's fan service and everything like that, but I don't think they're so dedicated to this fan service that they're willing to lose that kind of money to make
I agree. I think if this movie bombs hard, Stallone will probably cancel it. And that would be a shame. Because, while this one was a little bit of a misfire, there's still potential to make at least one more good sequel.
I feel like Stallone, though, like, if this movie doesn't bomb, if it does good enough to where he'll make another one, I feel like he's the kind of guy that will listen to the criticisms of this movie and fix it.
Well, he did with the first one. People said, the first one had a lot of potential and it was overall fun, but there's this, and this. And he said, okay. And he fixed it in the second one. The second one is superior in every single way.
So we might just be going through a cycle right now.
This is like the
first one and then the
exactly.
fourth one.
It was a little bit of a misfire. It was still a fun film though, and it's still there's a lot of people that wants this to end. I am all for more Expendables films. I'm gonna say it.
I don't know. Do you kind of feel like the actors kind of acted like they were getting tired of it though? I mean,
I thought
like
about
I know
that.
Stallone's probably not tired of it, but like
I thought about it. That might be why some of them sit out for a good amount of the film. That might be why Jet Li sat out for both the second and third one for a while. That might be why Terry Crews sat out for a good amount of the third one. I don't know. I feel like some of them are loving it. Like,
Statham loves it.
I could be wrong here. I feel like Statham is loving it. I feel like Lundgren is loving it. I feel especially Lundgren because I love Dolph Lundgren, but he doesn't. Most of his movies right now are direct to DVD, and he's been doing a lot of television work. But besides that, he's not doing a whole lot of big time movies.
Antonio Banderas loved it.
Yeah, well, all he's been doing is Shrek. So I feel like some of them are really liking it, but I would like them to make at least one more. I
wouldn't be surprised if they do make a fourth one. If some of them, for some reason or another, are not there.
Bruce Willis backed out. He didn't want to do it. And then Stallone said, fine, forget you. I'm getting Harrison Ford instead. But
which, I don't blame Bruce Willis. I mean, he has the choice to do it.
Yeah, it's fine. Okay. Granted, I think him doing Die Hard 5 over that was a poor choice. But I guess that's not entirely his fault. He didn't write the film. So
he's doing Sin City, so...
He's doing Sin City 2, yes. Thank you, Bruce Willis, for returning for Sin City 2. I've been looking forward to Sin City 2 for like 5 years now.
If you want to, we can talk about trailers really quick.
We didn't really get that much new, but we'll get to it in a moment.
City.
Yeah, we'll get to it in a moment. But I just want to wrap up Expendables 3.
Oh, that's fine.
So I am on board for another Expendables. Hopefully this does well enough to the point where Stallone. Hopefully it'll at least make it.
It blows Ninja Turtles away.
It probably won't, unfortunately, but I hope they at least make their money back, so it's not a bomb, and I hope that doesn't discourage Stallone enough to the point where he won't want to make another one. I hope he makes at least one more, because I think this series still has enough. I'm sure a lot of people disagree with me. I think this series has enough fuel for at least one more.
A lot of the reviews I read on Rotten Tomatoes were like, this just needs to end.
Yeah, exactly. They weren't. Most of the reviews are not harsh. They're just like, the nostalgia stuff was fun for the first two, but
it's what you expect, but it just needs to end. Basically,
exactly
what a lot of them said.
Yeah, and I get that. I totally get it. And I would normally, if this I'll admit I'm biased. I am biased. If this didn't have the people that I grew up watching and loving, I would say, my gosh, please end this series already. I want to see one more. I'm sorry. I want to see Pierce Brosnan in the Expendables.
And Hulk Hogan.
And Hulk Hogan. Good more wrestling. What you gonna do when the Expendables goes wild on you? So, I'm sorry.
Maybe they could bring Mickey Rourke back.
That would be nice to see Mickey Rourke again. So, yeah, that's Expendables 3. I would like to see maybe one more. But if they do, make it an R. And just do it better this time, guys. So that's Expendables 3. So we can talk about trailers real quick. We got Sin City, A Dame to Kill For. I've been looking forward to that film forever.
Got another Fury trailer.
Got another. This one was a little more extended.
Which for me, I'm really excited for that because that looks really good.
Yeah, Fury looks good. Yeah, it looks like a solid film.
It looks like a good homage to World War II. Good, because we haven't had a World War II film in quite a long time.
No. Last year we had The Monuments Men.
I never saw that.
I never saw it either. I heard it wasn't
very good.
Yeah, George Clooney.
We got the Dracula Untold.
I forgot about that. That looks so bad. And we got Hunger Games.
And we got the new Johnny Depp movie.
What's it called?
I don't know.
It's his name. It starts with an M. Yeah, that looked kind of.
Oh, Mordecai.
Mordecai. Yeah, that actually might be okay. It looks kind of weird.
It just looks like Johnny Depp being Johnny Depp.
That right there, in a nutshell. So yeah, so I think Sin City comes out next week. So
I looked; it was the 22nd.
Cool. I'm
Which
really
is
pumped
a week
for that.
from.
It's next week.
It's next Thursday, I think.
Yes, next week.
Okay.
So we'll definitely go to that premiere. That'll be a lot of fun. So thanks for watching. If you've been watching this whole video, this is a little longer than normal, but